on the plains, when like those massive storms come through, you'll see cows and horses and whatever animals running away from the storm. Essentially impossible, because the storm's moving faster than them, it's bigger than them, it will catch them. But the buffalo, they turn and go into it because they know that the fastest way to the other side is just head on and go through it. That's the way that things get done. Like in this work, be like a buffalo. That's it, period. The intensity of the storm is going to be there. It's still going to be there if you try and run from it. But if you run from it, now you have like the anxiety of it coming and all these other things come into play. Just lean in and go through it.
Welcome everyone to the Eons Ahead Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Wolfe. And on the show, we like to have deep, intimate conversations with amazing people that are eons ahead. But what does it mean to be eons ahead? Well, it means they're ahead of their time and they see things other people don't see, and they're able to communicate these visions to the world and manifest them into reality, making a positive impact for humanity. They're doing things that other people don't do. They're often conscious leaders, trailblazers, pioneers, and our guest today is definitely a qualifier of that. His name is Sam Gibbs Morris. He's a good friend and a brother, and I'll read you a little bit more about him here. Sam Gibbs Morris is a leader at the intersection of men's work, psychedelics, yogic leadership, and spirituality. He is a speaker, spiritual teacher, psychedelic medicine and breathwork facilitator, and a men's conscious relationship coach. He is also the founder of Transcend Breathwork. Sam has aligned his purpose with his innate gifts, creating safe and nurturing space for men to heal and expand their conscious masculine awareness. I love that. Sam has worked with over 2,000 men to guide them home to their core, reconnect with their self-worth, cultivate self-trust, and truly become an unwavering presence in their lives and their relationships. So valuable. He's a good friend. He's a brother. He's here today. He's eons ahead. Sam Gibbs Morris. Welcome.
Thank you, brother. So great to be here.
Great to have you here, man. I was genuinely excited to dive into this conversation. You know, we met at our brother Garen Jones retreat. Yeah. And, you know, I saw you there and I was like, man, this guy is really holding the space incredibly well, you know, and that was something that really struck out for me, and we got to spend some time together, but we haven't had too much time to dive in. So I'm really excited for today to get to know you better and see what comes out of this whole thing. Yeah,
me too, man. That connection was great. I mean, to be in those intimate settings and like everyone accesses a different level of who they are in those settings, and to be dropped in, and whether it's holding space or being a participant, it's so powerful to connect in those spaces.
So powerful, so palpable. Those retreats, Garen Jones retreats, are pretty epic. You know, if anybody is curious, I definitely recommend checking them out. The transformations that happen there are incredible. And Sam was a big part of that, especially for me, just having other men there that are dialed in and holding the space, and it creates a really powerful container. But before we get all into that, Sam, you know, one thing that I learned about you and really admired about you is you have a tremendous comeback story. You know, we could get into it. You faced some real challenges in your life. I know addiction and substance abuse and this kind of stuff, and hit some rock bottoms. And then you had an amazing comeback. You know, and I'm a big fan of that. I love hearing that. I'd love to hear more about that. Maybe just touch on a little bit of, you know, how rough it got, and then what you actually did to get through it, you know, for the people listening. Like, what are some tools or tricks they could use to get themselves out of a tough spot?
Thank you so much for acknowledging that and asking that question. I love the way you phrase that. It was, I mean, every time I look back at it, it's like, it gets a little bit earlier. It's, you know, I thought it started at 33 when my first DUI and my first trip to rehab, but really it was 10 years before that, 12 years before that, where, you know, I was the hard drinker, hard partier, and like, it was that, it was destructive, but not to the point where I was losing jobs or losing relationships. And then at age 33 is when it all came crashing down. And for the next 33 to 38 was when it really, that was like an extended 5 years of rock bottom for me.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, it ended, I'll start where it ended. It ended at November 21st, 2012. I was by myself at my kitchen table in North Carolina. My, you know, quote unquote friends had just left, which was drug dealers and fellow addicts. And, I was supposed to move out of my house in 4 hours, and I hadn't packed up a thing. I had spent all my money on cocaine and alcohol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had a big pile of cocaine and a bottle of rum in front of me, and something came over me that just said, this cannot go on.
Wow.
Like, this has got to end right now.
Wow.
And I mean, I had been in that 5 years, 33 to 38, I had been arrested 24, 25 times.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, spent 8 nights in jail one time. I had been to rehab 6 times. I had been to hospitals, countless number of times for cracked elbow, bumped my head, like all these things. It was a real rock bottom existence.
No kidding.
2009, I jumped off a balcony at a bar, second story of a bar, fell 35 feet and landed on the pavement below, which was actually a suicide attempt.
Holy jeez.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time. A plant medicine ceremony a few years ago showed me that. And so there was like this I was confused. I didn't know why this was all happening. I thought it was social anxiety. I thought it was anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. And that was part of it. But what I really learned is that it was shame. And that shame had started when I was born, basically, when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, when I started to interact with other kids and realized that I was different because I had this severe asthma, severe food allergies, severe eczema. I would choke on my food a lot. So I had all these things that were going on as a kid that made me feel shameful and different. And, there was bullying involved, and there was fear of birthday parties, fear of eating a peanut, fear of having an asthma attack, just a lot of fear. And then I learned over time to deal with that, but then that manifested itself in the form of addiction later on. And knowing what I know about both of those things now is that they both for me were addictions to struggle, addictions to shame, addictions to, addictions to attention in a way. And by that, I meant I created victims. I created victimhood in my life. And not to say when I was a kid and I was born and I had the asthma and food allergies, I didn't come out being like, I'm going to be a victim. Right. But looking back and doing the work that I've done, I can see now that I felt a deep sense of rejection from basically the moment one in my life. And I said, so that made up that as I am peaceful, calm, grounded, centered, happy, that's not going to cut it. There was no lack of love in my household. It was my parents were married. We went on trips all the time. We had, birthday parties all the time. There was no physical, emotional, sexual abuse. Right. And so, I noticed that although there was love there was a little bit more when I was having an asthma attack. There's a little bit more when I had a food allergy attack.
That's how you got attention.
Yeah. Right. And so I noticed that that level of intensity was something that I craved. And so growing up, that's why I had manifested these illnesses as a child, because I felt like I was going to fall through the cracks if I didn't. And then I'd say from 18 to, probably 15 to 25, things were okay. I was I had a job, I was going to get married. I had a good solid life and
normal life,
and then all of a sudden that kind of ego kicks on, wait, it's kind of boring. It's kind of dull. You're not creating, I had an imprint or a program installed in me that in order to be successful, happy, survive, and loved, I need to be saved. So to me, love equaled saving. Wow. And so I would create reasons
to get
saved. Wow. And that meant in intimate relationships. As soon as I heard I love you, I was I love you too. And yes, we loved each other, but in the subconscious of me was now you're responsible for me. So I'm going to create some sort of chaos, rupture in our relationship. And then I'm going to ask you to recover it with me and save it. And that's what love meant to me. And so, it just looked any number of ways, but it was destructive. Right. And then later in life, I was doing quote unquote good. And I was kind of, what I was saving myself. I was succeeding, and then but my undealt with wounds from childhood came up to the surface. And wait, but we're not getting the love we want. So I create addiction. Right. And so I go into this 18 years of a downward spiral of addiction. A lot of times looking for love, looking to cover up a shame wound, looking to cover up this I am not enough wound, looking to be a part of something. Whether that's a social group, whether that's a family. And the paradox, the irony of it all is that what I was actually doing was creating separation. I was creating more opportunities for rejection, more opportunities for isolation, which is the natural course of addiction. And so when finally I was 38 years old, 2012, then that ending came, I had known for a few years that this was not working out.
Right.
But I was afraid. I was afraid to go on dates sober. I was afraid to go to a football game sober. I was afraid to go to a concert sober. Like, that's going to be awful.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to feel feel that social anxiety. So
right.
I loved doing all those things. And I could not get my head around how am I going to do that without that social lubrication.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the first things I committed to was, how do I continue to live the life that I want to live, but without alcohol?
Mm-hmm.
And it was fueled by, they say in early addiction, like remember the pain, because it's easy to romanticize the drinking. Like I had a lot of really good nights.
Right.
And I also ended up in jail a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, there's a full spectrum there.
Right.
And so when it came time to, when I finally was committed to removing the alcohol and drugs from my life, I went to AA and to rehab, and I had done that for a while, but I could never connect with that rooms or that the people in the rooms, because they would all talk about these awful childhoods, alcoholic homes, physical abuse, and all this, and I'm sitting there like I don't have this.
Yeah, you had a good childhood, good parents, they were there for you, and all this stuff.
Yeah, I played tennis like at a high level all through college, and like I couldn't really figure out why I was there. And so that invited me to look deeper into my childhood. Because if you asked me 12 years ago, before I shifted everything, I'd be like, yeah, my childhood was great. I tennis and golf every summer. I skied every winter. We'd go to the Bahamas, like happy household. My parents were married all the way till I was, in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a problem with it. And not to say I have a problem with it now, but it was like I didn't see what the childhood actually did for me. And I looked into it, and I found that I was operating in fear and shame, basically my entire childhood.
Wow.
It was full on survival. I mean, I would have asthma attacks and end up in the hospital for 2-3 weeks at a time sometimes. And that would happen 2 or 3 times a year, whether it was an allergy attack or an asthma attack, whatever it was. I never really had although I was a child and I played a lot and had friends and did all the things that kids do, I really never had a chance to be dropped into being a kid, because I was literally worried about my next breath all the time.
Wow.
And had some pretty close near-death experiences because of asthma and food allergies.
Wow.
So it really, it forced me to look beyond like what I think what would be a problem, and really kind of uncover what was actually going on in my childhood. And that led me to, the past 12 years of doing the work, and consciousness and awareness, and AA led me to plant medicine, and then plant medicine led me to just a whole new world.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to get into all that, and there's a lot to unpack there. It's quite the story, your life story. So we go back to November 12th, November 11th.
Yeah, November 12th. November 21st.
Oh, November 21st, 2012.
Yeah.
It's some cool numerology there.
I know.
In those dates.
Yeah.
And you get the signal that, the drugs and the alcohol isn't going to work for you anymore. That's pretty impressive, actually, having a plethora of substances there that you've been doing. And it's like, no, this isn't going to work. And then you commit yourself to AA from there and got sober. And so walk us along the how to transition from, going sober. Yeah. And then let's get into what are some other things that you did that you picked up right away, I'm sure quickly, that were a big transition from, Hurricane Sam, I know the name Hurricane Sam, into this new version, this new identity that you created for yourself, besides AA. Yeah.
It was honesty, getting honest with myself, getting really diving in and saying, like, why is this present? Why am I I hate to use why am I like this? But it was like, what is fueling these behaviors, these patterns, this stuff?
Asking yourself.
Asking myself why. Yeah. Like, what is it? Like, why can't I stop for more than 60, 90? I stopped for a year one time and relapsed. Like, what is it about me that I need to figure out so that I can be free of this? And then from there, getting super honest with myself. And then from there, it's getting honest with other people. It's because there's a lot of wreckage that happens.
Sure.
And this does come a little bit from AA, but it is really about and this is kind of what's got me into what I do now, is coming out of that having addiction is a poor relationship with your own pain. So Gabor Mate asks this one question I love so much. He said, let's stop asking why the addiction and asking what about the pain. So addiction is a poor relationship with your own pain, whether that's pain that you've experienced or pain that you see coming. It's an avoidant of that for some reason. So what I really started to look at was, how do I relate to all the things in my life, whether that's the feminine, whether that's money, whether that's food, shopping. I mean, like all the things that we as humans either enjoy or do or whatever it is, self-care.
Yeah.
And so really recalibrating my relationship to myself in a huge way,
right?
Of of taking care of self, of really finding the things that support me and building a life that I'm actually proud of, that I know that alcohol and drugs will not even add anything to, and at least they'll take away from.
Right.
And so really like spending the first year or so, and I really went inward in the first year. Like before, it was always like, oh, I'll start dating or I'll start
external things.
External things, yeah. Like how fast can I get healed?
Right.
And so I allowed, one of the huge things is I allowed myself to be a beginner in that.
Right.
Essentially learning to live again. I moved to a brand new city, San Francisco. I didn't know anybody, and therefore I didn't really have any like attachments to like, oh, I remember drinking in there. I remember doing coke in that bathroom.
Right.
Like it was no
new environment.
Yeah, there was no markers or triggers there. And so I just got to work building this life of like a life that I love and a life that I was proud of. And then the more that happens, the further away from a drink that I got. And then I started recognizing like, wow, I get to do all these things I love to do when I was drinking, and I get to do them sober now. And that's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. What a change. It sounds like you really tapped into clarity, and the way that you did that was new environment, like new space, and actually giving yourself the space, and then asking the deep questions that we probably avoid most of our life because we're just always on to the next thing or person or place or job. Yeah. And trapped in this life of consumerism, it's really like, what's the next thing that's going to make me feel a certain way? And that's a lie that our ego tells us. And it's something that I'm getting more and more clear with, is that there's nothing really external that can give us a sustainable feeling, right? Like it all starts from within. Yeah. And it sounds like you really tapped in with that. And can I ask, like, what was your driver when, I think you just said it, but let's make it super clear. What was your driver when you found out, okay, I'm running away, or I'm avoiding the pain and of the shame and the victimhood? And then what became the new driver? Like, why was it this? Was it just to enjoy life again, or what was it for you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a base level, it was self-preservation. It was that, self-preservation, and then also recognizing that how important relationships are to me. Relationship with self, relationship with others, and knowing that the behavior that was exhibited, that I was behaving as, like the guy that I was showing up as, in that way, was not anywhere near someone that could have any kind of life that was enjoyable. Like everything was ripped away from me. House, girlfriend, career, I was a commercial real estate broker, gone. Wow. All of it just gone. And so I literally had to rebuild. And so, and I had this knowing that I was 38. There's no way that I would live another 38, 40, 50 years in that way. Right. And so I knew that no matter what, that was a burn the boats moment, that there was no going back. Right. It didn't matter if I had to figure out how to go on dates. Wow. I had to figure out how to go to a bar and watch football on Saturday mornings. Like I had to figure out how I was going to do this life without alcohol and drugs. Right. And really, I feel very, very grateful that a lot of people will stop and have like the cravings, or they can't go here. Sure. I have never once since that moment had a drink would be nice right now. Never once had a craving or anything. It was so just, that's the end. Amazing. For me. Congratulations. It's powerful to know that, and, plant that stake in the ground and never to look back. I've had my issues and challenges with addiction, with alcohol and cannabis and sex, and even just like workaholism, like just working, always overdoing things, to try to fill a void. And for me, it was really similar to you, Sam, and I'm wondering why this happens, and maybe you have some, light you could shine on it, but like, it's almost like we need to
hit these rock bottoms or get to these emotional triggers of like, I never want to feel this low again.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm at the depths of the shit. And it's like, that was what it was for me. It was like, I never want to feel like this low again.
Yeah.
And then it was like, boom, okay, I'm planting a flag in the sand and I'm going on a new trajectory.
Yeah.
Why do you think we have to get to these levels of self-destruction and despair and pain? Like, is that just how we're wired, or what do you think?
I think that's a little bit of it. And I think, like, from what I've done, the work that I've done, I mean, I work mostly with men, but I work with women as well and couples, and the women tend to catch it a little bit sooner. Like, they tend to like be a little bit more willing to not go as far into the hell depths as the men, but the men they're stubborn as fuck. Yeah, good for them. We're stubborn as fuck, and it's like, I'm holding on to the bitter end. I got this, and I think that part of that is that, like, we always feel like there's one more place to be. There's one more, like, it's not that bad yet, which is part of the thing that I'm getting to here, is that until it's that, it's good enough. Until it's that, it's not bad enough. And so that enough place, that good enough or not bad enough, is such a dangerous place to live, because it's like, because usually what happens when you're at that, like, it's either just good enough or not bad enough, there'll be like dips into real shit. Like, you're like, you have a bad week or a bad month. You're like, fuck, this is awful. And then there's like something shifts and you kind of come back up and you're like, oh, it's good enough.
Right. Yeah.
Come back to good enough. And that feels
dangerous place to be, man.
Dangerous place to be, because you're literally towing the edge of that cliff.
Yeah.
And you're on loose gravel, and it's 1,000-foot drop down, and it's dark.
Yeah.
And you're gonna like hit a rock and slip down the cliff, and you'll climb back up, and you'll be like, oh, made it back again. And that's where a lot of people, like, that's where men tend to operate. And I think humans too tend to operate there, where because you fall off and it takes so much effort to get up to your head back on the cliff ledge again, that now you're exhausted. Yeah. And it feels great because it's not the deep cliff anymore. Right. You're not in the canyon anymore. Right. And so the work kind of stops. Or we establish, like, that's a thermostat for us. So one of the things we were talking a little bit before about the big leap, like these upper limit problems, everyone has a thermostat. And a lot of times the thermostat is like, okay, it's not great, but it's good enough. And that right there, like, when it gets down, then when we're at the bottom of the cliff and now there's no rocks to climb back up and we're just in there, in the darkness, in the shit, then it's like, oh, I need to make big changes now. Right. And it's not, in that existence on the edge of the cliff is such a trap. Yeah. It's like, we gotta do the work to get, a few miles off the edge of the cliff. Yeah. And that's when we really start to establish success and groundedness. And then we actually have the space because and another thing is, it's predictable. That level of good enough is predictable pain, familiar hell. Yeah. And the 3 miles
comfort zone.
Right, 100%. The 3 miles off the cliff's edge is an unfamiliar heaven. New territory. Yeah. And the ego's like, Yeah,
I don't know that thing.
Yeah, I'm
okay with staying here in the good enough place. And that, you're right. It's that's a great analogy, by the way. I love that. I'm going to use that. It's because it's so easy to get stuck there. And then you're just in these cycles of, low and okay, a little bit better. Yep. And then if you're there, you'll never hit the greatness. No. You got to really just break the game and go for something new and change it totally up. So, man, I love that. And I feel like, we chatted about a little bit this before the show started, but that's where I felt I was in the last year, to be honest, and externally people may see me as crushing it, and I guess compared to some, sure. But in my own internal struggle, I was really challenging over the last year. And I just kept getting in these loops and these spirals of, this is good, but not good enough. And it wasn't until I actually went deep within and felt, this pain of, unworthiness and shame and this low feeling that I was avoiding by constantly trying to do my way out of it, work my way out of it and be the doer. And so I went in, felt it all. It did suck to feel it, but it only lasted, not that long. It's kind of cool how we avoid it for so long, but when we actually just sit with the feeling by ourselves, and in nature, it seems to help a lot too. Totally. You sit with yourself with these feelings, it could only last for like 5-10 minutes or something. And then the feeling is gone. And then it's like, wow, I feel a lot lighter. But we do have to sit with it, Is this a practice that you take on as well?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I think the science of it, like the actual biology, is that a negative emotion only actually is real for like 90 seconds. The rest of it is us hanging on to it.
It's wild.
It's so crazy. Like, and to think about that, like, wow, I'm fucking a dick to myself. Like, why?
Yeah.
But we hang on to it because we make it mean something about us. We make it mean something about our future. We fear if it's going to come back again.
Sure.
But to me, like, there's such magic. And this is like, it gets a little cliche, but lean the fuck in.
Yeah.
Like it really, like the buffalo have it all figured out, you know, into the storm.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's one of the best like nature human analogies that exists. It's like,
do you want to share it?
Yeah, sure.
Please do. I love this story.
So on the plains, when like those massive storms come through, you'll see cows and horses and whatever animals running away from the storm. Essentially impossible because the storm's moving faster than them. It's bigger than them. It's going to outlast them. It will catch them. But the buffalo, they turn and go into it because they know that the fastest way through it to the other side is to kind of just head on and go through it. And that's the way that things get done. Like in this work, be like a buffalo. That's like a buffalo. Period.
I love it.
Because it's really like yes, it's gonna, the intensity of the storm is gonna be there. It's still gonna be there if you try and run from it. But if you run from it, now you have like the anxiety of it coming and all these other things come into play.
Right.
Just lean in and go through it.
Yeah.
I remember at the end of last year, so I was we were talking a little bit about relationships. I was in a tumultuous relationship for most of last year. And tumultuous is not the right term, but it was one of those off and on.
Sure.
Are we in it? Are we not? Like,
little
what are we
unclear.
doing? Yeah. Like we didn't really know. And then we went to Burning Man together. And on like the Monday, so we got there to do build Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was either Sunday or Monday of Burning Man. She was like, yeah, we're done.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So we're at Burning Man and it ended.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, so I'm on the playa. I got like 5 or 6 days left out there, and I'm like, that's gonna be interesting. So it's kind of a holding pattern at that point, you know. And it ended up being an amazing Burning Man.
I'm sure.
I got all the intentions I had met, but coming back out of it, you know, I had in my head heartbreak. It's gonna be like a year. It's gonna be 9 months. But I turned and said, no. I'm gonna be like the buffalo here. I'm gonna lean in. And the thing that came to me was grief. Like, and I looked back for the past 20 years. I was married in 2002, divorced 2004. And I looked all the way back to that and like everything I had never grieved. The marriage itself, because I was the one that left. So I didn't need to grieve. I'm good.
Right.
No, bullshit.
Yeah.
My dad's death in 2015, I made up that I was too busy to really, really grieve. My sister's death in 2018, same thing. I got work to do. Like you can't afford to be dying here. Like, which is, it feels shitty.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it left open emotional loops. And I was like, and so the willingness to be in that and sit with it, I was through the entire heartbreak of the relationship in like 3 months because I chose to just kind of stop everything and be in it whenever possible. Whenever it would come up, there was no pushing away. There was nothing else. And so the more that we can be willing to sit in it, the faster it goes. Yeah. Which goes counterintuitive to all the ego, because the ego makes up like, oh, if we sit in it, this is just who we are now. Right. We're going to be in this forever. Right. And it's the willingness of the human to say, no. Like the knowing, the gnosis that this is going to be faster than that. Like the more I sit with it, the faster it dissolves.
Yeah. Well said, brother. It's brilliant. And I love the fact that you brought up the spirit of the buffalo. That was the animal. When I first came to Austin 3-4 years ago, I ran into a buffalo while I was driving. I misworded that. I saw a buffalo when I was driving. I stopped the car and got out with my girlfriend at the time, Chloe. And Chloe and I got out and we started petting the buffalo. And it was like this magical moment. I'd never seen a buffalo before and I'd never been that close to one, never touched one. And it was truly a magical moment. You know, I had this connection with the buffalo. And, you know, it was very inspiring because over the next year, it was like I really tapped into that buffalo energy, and I had a lot of challenges come up that year, but I just kept leaning into them, and that was the thing, was like just do the hard thing. Yeah. And on the other side of that is freedom, because you're not running away from it. Yeah. And so now I have a picture of a buffalo above my cold plunge, and every morning, you know, there's that resistance to get into the cold water. I keep it at like 36 degrees. and I look in the eye of the buffalo, and it just stares at me, and it's like, okay, and I get into the cold. Exactly, you know? So I love that. And I got it tattooed on my leg since moving here to Austin. So it's a real powerful animal spirit for me. And it's so cool to tap into these animal spirits and stories, because they could represent so much. And it's like you touched on before, Sam, that I like to talk about is the meaning, right? Like, to someone, a buffalo could just be a buffalo, but because we have this story around it, and there's a meaning that we give to it, it now becomes powerful.
Yep.
And it reminds me that we get to choose what we give our meanings to, because it becomes the story of our life.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if there's anything that's come up for you in the last year where you've either changed the meaning around something and now it's changed for you. Does anything come up when I talk about that?
Yeah. Wow, so much. I would love to just talk about like the tapping into the animal kingdom.
Yeah, sure.
Nature
Please.
thing first.
Please.
We as humans, we are numb creatures because of technology, because of TV. Like we have lost the ability to connect with nature. And that means that this is why we hold on to emotions. This is why we, can't sense when a storm is coming. There's like so many things that the animal kingdom can teach us about how to exist naturally in flow. Whether it's like, Father Time, Mother Nature, the ocean, the wind, the buffalo, the owl, like all these creatures they still have that instinct. Where we've become numb to it for the most part. And so if we can look back, and like indigenous tribes, they still have it too. And so if we can get out of our current experience and like reintegrate or re-tap into this instinct that we have inside of us, this is when we can move through emotions faster. We can learn to be more in flow, like with nature, with the circadian rhythms, with the moon and the sun and all these things. But we've just lost it all. And I love that you brought that up about how like nature can be our guide.
Absolutely.
Like it looks chaotic to us, like, oh, like there's not really any, like we love patterns and we love rows and lanes.
Structure
and, but see the nature, it does have structure, and it's the time. That's why Father Time, Mother Nature is masculine and feminine balance. Like the Mother Nature is actually like chaotic as shit. Like but it's also really flowy and it's all perfect. And Father Time just like, I got you. Like I'm holding it. Like you just do what you got to do. I'm here. No wavering, nothing. And it's beautiful to witness that.
So what are some ways that you tap into nature, Sam?
I go in it.
Nice.
Be in it. Like really like just like kind of like do the research on these. Like I have an owl tattoo on my front here.
Owl's dope.
So I feel like the owl is the consciousness. It's got the head that swivels 360 and it just kind of sits there and observes.
Very wise.
Very wise. Bird of prey. Like there's a lot of things about it that it's a spirit animal for me. And so just like doing the research on it and knowing it and being aware and witness, like when a cardinal comes around, or like you saw, I mean, who sees a buffalo on the side of the road and then goes and pets it? Like that's like really crazy shit. And like stuff like that, like there are no accidents, and tapping into like, what is it? Like you saw that buffalo when you first moved here. Now you've taken on the spirit of that here and it served you. Like being aware and allow that, like, okay, the buffalo show up in my life, that's medicine. An owl shows up in my life, that's medicine. A snake, like there's medicine all around us when we can be open enough and connected enough to see it and receive it.
Absolutely.
And this is what Native American tribes knew. It's what the Mayan cultures know. It's what the Aztecs know. It's what, in Tibet and Siberia, it's what they know. Like all these ancient cultures know this. And it's we're now remembering to tap back into it and allow that to lead us. Yeah,
well said. It's ancient wisdom and knowledge that we are connected to nature, right? And back then, before all this modern day technology and all that kind of stuff, we're so much more attuned to it, and then we'd see it and we get the signal from this animal of the medicine that this animal represents, and there was a code there. There was a something that would light us up and be able to tap into the spirit of these animals that have been around forever, right? And their spirit is authentic. Like the eagle wakes up, or the owl wakes up in the morning, the antelope wakes up, and they're just that animal. You
Yeah.
know, they're not putting on an identity and trying to go to work or something.
Yeah.
So there's something so powerful about that authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you elaborated on that too, because I love tapping into these animal spirits,
so
and
much.
it's something that I have in mind for Eons a little bit down the road, you know, with an epic creatures line, but I'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
But let's go.
Then
Go
there's
ahead.
the symbols too.
Tell me more. Go ahead.
Well, that's a little bit of it. Is
Yeah.
like the symbolism of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like again, like all these ancient cultures, they use these animals as symbols, whether it's like the thunderbird or the bear with the lightning bolt through it. Like
Right.
they created these symbols around these animals
Mm-hmm.
to connect with them and call in the leadership of that spirit.
Mm.
Carl Jung has a book, Man and His Symbols.
Mm.
You know, it's all like this is what we do. Like we as humans love to symbolize things,
Right.
whether it's angel numbers or astrology or the animals that we talk about, whatever it is. Like these symbols give us meaning in a way.
Exactly. There we go.
Yeah. And so you know, to be tapped in and choose the ones that work for you. Like
Mhm.
for me, like there's some that do and some that don't, and it's about like how do these symbols support what I'm doing and support me?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like calming the nervous system or leadership or
Right.
you know, in meditation or in a psychedelic ceremony, an animal comes to you. It's like it's really, really cool.
It's really cool, and it's almost tapped into the quantum field, or maybe it is tapped into the quantum field,
Totally.
because a symbol can hold so much data and so
Yeah.
much information, but as soon as we see it, it's like they say a picture is more than 1,000 words or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So it's just way more data that can be absorbed instantly.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Speaking of nature and powerful stuff and medicine, I know you're an experienced psychedelics,
Yep.
you know, coach and user
Mm-hmm.
and practitioner,
Yep.
facilitator. Share a little bit about your relationship with psychedelics and how you see it playing a part in this evolution that we're in right now.
Yeah, I love that. So my relationship with psychedelics was, you know, I had a relationship back in my teens and early 20s and 30s when it was very, very, you know, recreational.
Yeah,
is
of course.
is a friendly term to use.
Sure.
You know, I was like, let's just eat a bunch of psychedelics and get weird.
Yeah.
What was that? It was acid or mushrooms or ecstasy, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And ecstasy, whether that's a psychedelic or not, it's an altered state, right?
Yes.
And so then as I went through the whole addiction thing, as I was basically trying to cut mind-altering substances out of my life, something just dropped in. That's a good thing there.
Cool.
So as an addiction, I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
As addiction, I feel like it is the mind-altering.
Mm.
And when it comes to the way I use them now, it's the consciousness altering. You know, so altered states of consciousness are the altered states of mind. The mind is like, that's the escapism.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to escape this like relentless onslaught of these thoughts in this
Totally.
mind, whether that's shame, guilt, depression, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The consciousness now is like, how do I expand?
Mm-hmm.
How do I become more? How do I tap into more love, more connection, more truth?
Mm-hmm.
And so everything stopped on November 21st when I was 38, like all of it gone. And I kind of was like committed to like, that's going to be my life going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then after about 6 years of doing the work in AA, about 6 years of like really deep human experience work,
Yeah.
like no altered states at all.
Yeah.
The voice came in, the nudge came in like, hey, what about ayahuasca?
Wow.
What about psilocybin?
Right.
And then that kind of opened the door. And I sat with that for a couple of years because I was like, well, you know, like I'm gonna end up in jail. I'm gonna drink ayahuasca and end up, you know, calling up my guy for cocaine. And like, this was the story, the conversations or stories I was making up in my head. And so I sat with it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved here to Austin, I was like, part of the move here to Austin was like, I knew I was done with AA. I knew that was not my path anymore. It felt, you know, I love AA. I think it does amazing things for people. I just moved through it. I moved through the process of it. It stopped serving me. It became a little bit destructive. And I felt like I was plateauing out. And I said, okay, I'm going to leave AA, but I can't just leave an AA-sized hole in my life. Like I need to continue to fill that with, you know, spirituality, meditation, and for me, plant medicine. So I started microdosing. And
Psilocybin?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And that was, I didn't recognize it, but I was full on depressed before that. Like I knew I was like having a struggle in life, and I was like inability to focus, inability to like create. And I started microdosing on like, and it wasn't just like the random I'm going to microdose every, once a week or every couple of weeks. It was like, I got on a protocol.
Nice.
And I did this the right way. And it really shifted my entire life. I like all the things you talk about, like the lights got brighter, the colors got brighter, the sounds got better, like my creativity spiked, all that like fight or flight that was, we as humans are so adaptable that we recalibrate to like pain in our bodies, emotional distractions, fight or flight. Like we recalibrate to it becomes a normal thing for us and we don't recognize it. Fight or flight is one of those things that's too quiet to notice until it's too strong to ignore.
Right.
And so like I was massively in fight or flight. And when that dropped away, business picked up, relationships picked up.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to drop into Aubrey Marcus's mastermind, Fit for Service.
Nice.
I did that in 2020. And that led me to Bufo, which then led me to Mexico, which led me to ayahuasca, which, opened up my world to so many different things. And now, it's like to get over that conversation of like, I'm an addict. How am I going to do these consciousness altering substances? For me, it came down to big part of it was intention. My intention is not to avoid. My intention is to seek.
Right.
My intention is not to distract. My intention is to go in. My intention is not to get weird and just party. My intention is to be intentional and constructive and like have like real healing happen. And so for 3.5, 4 years, it was a massive healing journey. And then sometime last year, it shifted into an expansion journey. Whereas like I've done I've gone to sit in the jungle for 3 weeks with ayahuasca and did the healing there. And I've sat with Bufo, who knows how many times, and done the healing there. And now I don't feel called to go in like when the healing has been done. And this is a big thing is like, it's like, when do you stop healing?
Right.
Like, because healing is addictive as shit.
Right.
Like you start to heal, you start to feel good. It makes you feel worthy. It makes you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah.
And then it tips, the scales tip and you're like, I'm just looking for things to heal now.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, I was almost going backwards because I was, okay, so you look for things to heal, you're going to create things to heal. Right. So you're going to create more scarcity. You're going to create more heartbreak. You're going to create more destruction, whatever it is. Yeah. Because if your whole intention is healing, what are you going to do what are you going to do when there's nothing left to heal? Yeah, totally. And this is not to say the work is done. Right. This is just to say the intention of the work is now shifted where I feel like so I've healed myself of the food allergies, the asthma, the eczema. I healed myself of cancer in 2022, all from using this method of plant medicine, conscious healing, doing the deep inner work. And so that cancer was pretty much the end of that. Yeah. And I kind of looked at myself and I'm like, I'm done creating reasons to heal. And I'm now looking like, how can I become a bigger impact in the world? How can I become more in love with my girlfriend or myself? How can I become more connected to what truth actually is? And using these medicines for all that has become my path with the medicines.
Beautiful, man. I love that. It's such a valuable tool, these psychedelics. And I love that you touched on the point of like the healing aspect of it, because I hear so many people creating their own stories around healing and how, the healing never ends and all this kind of stuff. Well, if that's your story, then it definitely will not end. You'll continue on these loops of healing. And my business partner and good friend and comrade, Ryan, who's another well-experienced plant medicine practitioner and facilitator, he's on the same page as you, Sam, where it's like you do the work, you heal, and then you trust that you've done the work, and you move on, and if something comes up, it comes up. The work never really ends, but it's very good to be mindful of this loop of healing. Otherwise, I see people get stuck in it all the time, and they're always on to the next retreat or this kind of thing, and they're always outsourcing their inner power when it's all within them the whole time. And it's exactly like you said. That's why I love the intention of it is you're doing the opposite of what we used to do with these, toxic substances to avoid and distract and create new identities. It's really going within. Yeah. And go ahead.
As you're talking, it's like, it's so important to like the medicine hopping. The people that are like always in ceremony or always in coaching programs or always in that.
It's bypassing, isn't it?
It's bypassing, and it's really dishonoring your human experience. You know, like if we're going into these places, these realms, and the quantum levels, and which are amazing, and fucking valuable.
They are awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome, right? And if we're going in there and just like that's the only place we feel good,
Yeah.
or that's the only place we can do things, and we're not coming back and doing the prep work leading up or the integration work on the back end of it, we're dishonoring the human experience. Because like so much, especially in the conscious community, I see so much. The human experience gets lost.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, the Matrix sucks, 3D sucks. Like,
Right.
No, it does not.
No,
I mean, it's the thing.
Yeah.
It's the
That's
one
why we're
thing.
here.
It's like there's nothing outside of that really.
Yeah.
Like we can go outside of the 3D and get into the 5D and the new earth and all that stuff. And yes,
Sure.
I go there. I lead people there. I guide people there. I coach people there. And if I'm not doing that for myself and guiding them back to being a good human, what the fuck are we even doing?
Yeah, well said, man. I agree. I'm on this page with you. I used to, use the terms escaping the matrix a lot and all this kind of stuff. But Neo, if you look back in the movie The Matrix, which I believe is a documentary series,
yeah, totally.
He doesn't escape the matrix. He goes into the matrix, and he goes out and he learns the new codes in the other realms and he does the training and all that kind of stuff. And then he goes in and he's an embodied version of himself when he goes in and he's able to handle all these things. And that's the way that he makes a difference, even to the end where he befriends Agent Smith, and they start working together. So it's there's so many metaphors and analogies in there, but I'm with you on the fact that, we came to this human experience in the 3D. That's why we're all here.
Yeah.
And I get it. There's amazing things and codes that we could learn in the quantum realms. And I love exploring them just as anybody else. Well, probably more than most people, but it's really how we can get those codes and then bring them back into the 3D, embody them as human beings and be leaders for other people.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's, I love how you know I'm about to speak. Yeah. I think that's what you asked the other end of that question was like, how do these medicines or these modalities play into our society? And it's just that. Yeah. It's like, there's so many things that take us out of consciousness. I've just finished reading A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, it's my favorite book of all time.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've started it a few times before, and then I actually, for a program I'm in, one of the assignments was to read it, and it was just like,
yeah.
And it just talks about this, how everything is really designed to remove us from consciousness, because our consciousness at the very deep human conscious level is fucking scary to us, scary to the ego. And so when we can use these medicines to increase the safety in our consciousness, increase the trust in the present moment, that's when we get to drop in and say, we get to all come together. And that's, the book, New Earth. Yeah, that's absolutely what it is. Like a bunch of conscious people doing conscious things in a conscious way.
Yeah. In the now, right? In the now. That's when everything happens. It's always the now. And the more that we could tap into that and just be in the present. And, I say the word be because it's not about doing anymore. It's really just about being in that moment and feeling it and breathing it. And it's, I'm so glad you brought up Eckhart Tolle. That's probably the book I've read more than any other book. I think I've read it 20 something times now. And I always go back to it. And the cool thing is I always pick up something new every time. It's like, oh, how did I not even realize that? My consciousness is just constantly getting new tidbits of information.
It feels a bit like, not a bit, it feels, as I'm reading it, I'm like, this is a user's manual for being human.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
It is. He's so dialed in, this guy. And even when you hear him speak, he's got really no ego to his voice. He's just dialed. He's so dialed in. Yeah. Sam, I got a question for you. Do you think the world is ready for legal psychedelics? Eons, I don't know if you know this, but we're about to launch our first legal psychedelic microdose. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll probably be out.
Wow. Can't wait to try that.
Yeah, you're going to love it. I think you're going to love it. It's a very calming effect for the user. That's what it's designed for, is extremely calming to give them the space to reflect on themselves, on their thoughts and their beliefs, and kind of take a pause from the hamster wheel of life, and then see what comes up. And then the mushroom, it's a fully legal mushroom. It doesn't contain psilocybin. It contains another psychedelic ingredient called muscimol. And this muscimol will start working on their subconscious mind. And if they take the space to themselves to reflect or meditate, it will basically start to show them their patterns and their things, and then they get to choose if they want to change or not. You know, it's really giving the power back to the user experience. So yeah, I'm curious. Do you think the world is ready for psychedelics, or am I jumping the gun here by bringing this out, or what do you think?
Wow, that's a really good question. I feel like the world is ready. There's other things that maybe not. Big pharma,
sure,
the government. Like I feel like we have to be so careful about how this comes to legalness, or how this comes to legality, or how this comes to the general population, because I mean, there's just mountains and mountains of evidence that this is like, these are the next medicines.
Yes.
You know, it's not Lexapro, it's not Prozac, it's not whatever else. It's these medicines, because they're the efficiency, they don't take the physical toll. Like, it's just a better way.
Yeah.
That being said, one of the fears I have around this is money getting a hold of it.
Sure.
And just really, really kind of just ruining it, just like it did with everything else.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's so far it's on a really good trajectory. And I think guys like RFK and guys that like are really on board with like doing this the right way, and getting the right people to speak about it and right people to get on board. I think it's huge, because these are essentially like there's a new leader that's being called into leadership. There's a new form of leadership that's being asked, and it involves these medicines, and it involves consciousness and awareness. No more of the zombie leadership. Yeah. And no more of that. Like that's just not going to work anymore.
No kidding.
And I feel the world is ready. I feel, and I'm about, like, I want everyone to experience these medicines. And I do see that it deserves a very slow, intentional, methodical process. Yeah. For a lot of reasons. One is because getting it in the wrong hands is going to be the wrong outcome. Sure. The medicines itself, giving everything a chance to really land. And I do also really believe in the intelligence of these medicines. Yeah. Like, I don't think the medicines are going to allow them to be really, really abused like that. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it so many times with, like, just simply like someone that says, "Oh, I want to serve medicine." I'm like, "Great, ask the medicine." Yeah, exactly. Like, you can try. Like, when I first started serving Bufo, I was a little gung ho about it. Sure. Like, I was trying to like talk to my mentors, be like, "Hey, can I come sit in the ceremony? Can I come help? Can I come?" And they're just like, "Wait." Yeah. And finally, I was in Mexico, and I was like, I just moved to Mexico, and I was like, you know what? I'm trying too hard. Like, it's not working out. And I reckon, like, the medicine is deciding that I'm not in that point
already
yet.
Yeah.
Within a week, I recognized that my mentor's mentor, the shaman that trained them, lived 20 minutes away from me in Mexico. Wow. And so I started, and then the medicine's like, cool, you relaxed, you calm down, like, come on in. Yeah. And so these medicines they are leaders. There's leadership, and there's intelligence to them that I really do believe is part of this whole process. Oh, 100%. I couldn't agree more. So just on that, yeah, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah. You know, and this specific mushroom came to me about, we're almost on 2 years ago when it first came to me, and it was in a sound bath ceremony, you know, and it was just like zing, and this like, wow, I got to research this mushroom. And I did. And I found out it was completely legal in 49 states. So I was like, okay, that's a great sign, because I don't want to do anything that's illegal. It's not my path. Yeah. As much as I love psilocybin, and I'm microdosing psilocybin right now, but I would never sell it. I would never do anything that's illegal, my own personal choices. And I appreciate all the people out there that are getting psilocybin to people, because it's an amazing medicine. But for me, I'm too forward facing. And so I wanted to find a different way. There's always a way. So we found this mushroom came to me about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years in a sound bath ceremony. And it was like a lightning bolt. I was like, wow. And then I started, I was excited like you. And I was like, okay, I got to bring this to the market. And I'll do a chocolate bar and all this kind of stuff and big dose. And I was like, I got to get to know this medicine. So I spent a lot of time learning this mushroom and sitting with it, and ceremony, and just reflecting, like hours of meditating on this mushroom. And it was just showing me things about myself, and I fasted with it for one time for 4 days, just me and this mushroom. And that's when I really got to see layers of myself that I'd never seen before. And one of them we talked about was my survival mode, always just in survival, and like
it's never enough. And I got a fight or flight. Like I was in fight or flight for, I don't even know how many years of my life, so it showed me that. And it was like, okay, it's not going to work for where this is going.
Yeah.
This is not where we're going anymore. So you got to drop that, and you actually got to purge it out of you, So I had to purge that, and it was a real thing.
Yeah.
But after it was done, it was like, okay, I'm ready for another code. And so it's been this whole journey with this mushroom, over a year and a half of working with it. And I went in, he actually reached out to me as like the leading expert on this mushroom in probably the world. Mm-hmm. Someone that's sat with it probably more than any other human being. So I brought him on to Eons as an advisor to help us, bring this mushroom to the world very responsibly. Because that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I understand I have a responsibility to bring this out. So it's going to be in a true ultra microdose dose, like even if someone took a whole bottle, they're not going to have a crazy psychedelic journey or experience. That there's no visuals, there's no hallucinations. It's not something for people to, get excited about getting high on like they could with psilocybin. It's really a protocol for anxiety, addiction, depression, and PTSD. There's 4 different protocols. And it's really working on their subconscious mind. So they're going to have to take time to themselves to go into nature and reflect and then see what comes up for themselves. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm definitely going to bring it to the world very gently. It's not something that's going to get forced onto people, of course. Just people that are curious, that we'll see and see how it goes.
I love the reverence that you have for it.
Thank you.
That's so important with these medicines is reverence. Like it can get real reckless.
Yeah.
Like over like doing too much and like just being like willy-nilly with it and not staying in integrity. But when you give the medicine a safe place to be, a trustworthy place to be, the medicine says, okay, I get to live there. Yeah. And I will help you.
Yeah.
But if there's any inkling of like out of integrity or recklessness or forcing, the medicine's gonna be like, no.
Yeah.
Slow down,
like cowboy.
I had a moment, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, when I was serving Bufo, but like things had gotten a little wonky with the business, and I was kind of like, what's going on? And I ordered more from my source in Mexico, and it got lost and didn't come to me. And I was like, wait, this is not just a simple post office losing my mail. Like, this is an energetic thing. Yeah. So I took a step back and I recalibrated my relationship with it, and then it's been smooth sailing ever since. But holding that reverence that you're holding for it it's so important. One is for what you're doing, but it's so important that that's the signature you're giving the medicine. The medicine carries the signature of the messenger, right? So if you're going into it and like things are just not right, or you're doing something shady, it's going to be a bad experience for people. Yeah. But like when you can hold that integrity and that reverence for the medicine, the experience that they're going to have, because that signature lives in that medicine that you've created, your signature, it's going to be, it enhances the experience they're going to have.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I feel that truly. I really, since been using this protocol, every morning I start out with just cultivating peace within my heart. And I don't really do anything until that I'm just sitting in that feeling of peace, you know? And that's what this mushroom showed me. I was like, it's all really about peace and love. And I know that sounds pretty hippie-like, but I'm starting to get it now, though.
Totally.
It's really that. Like, it's all love. Everything is love.
Everything is love.
And if we're not able to really tap into peace, like, I think we're just missing the whole point of this existence.
You know, love, everything is love. And survival mode, it makes you, there's no time for that in survival mode. There's no time for peace in survival. There's no time to eat in survival mode. Like survival mode literally wreaks havoc on your entire system. All 4 bodies, the emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. It just wreaks havoc on all of them, because it rips you, when you're in survival mode, that's all you're thinking about. And you'll literally do anything. And you could say, oh, I'm not a liar. I don't manipulate. That's horseshit. If you're in survival mode, you're not even recognizing that you're doing it. Your ego is fully overdriving online, and all your only mission, your only purpose every day or whatever moment is survive. And in that, you're going to do some not so great things to survive. Now, when you can get out of like that constant survival mode and then tap back into like, I guess, thrive mode, like that's a whole different ballgame, because it's still like surviving. Like that's okay. That's what humans do. Like we survive. But when it's that survival mode that's like running overdrive, then it's like the fear sets in, the depression sets in, the anxiety sets in.
Yeah, hormones get out of whack.
Hormones get out of whack. Like things there's the alignment's not happening. Like everything's a struggle. You got to force everything. There's chaos all around you. Yeah. Because there's no time for peace and love and calmness to exist in your heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said, brother. I got 2 questions that have started coming up, and I've sometimes asked these to people when they, I get the pulse. One is, what is something that Sam believes, in his heart that maybe many people around you actually would disagree with, but it's something that you hold true to yourself, and you're like, many people may disagree with this, but it's true in your heart.
Yeah. Wow, that's a big question. The thing that popped into my head was that every single thing that we experience in our life externally, and that means like a wrist pain, cancer, heart pain, diabetes, to like money things, to love things, to heartbreak, there's a direct correlation to some emotional, spiritual, energetic distortion within us. There is nothing that is actually physical. Even if you say like, oh, I was playing basketball, I sprained my ankle. There's an emotional attachment to that. There's something there. Yeah. And to me, in my mind, this is a law, universal law of fact. There's nothing that is that we experience that may be quote unquote negative. It doesn't have some sort of emotional, mental, spiritual, energetic distortion within us. And if we can pinpoint the emotional, energetic, spiritual distortion in us, the physical manifestation or expression of that will just go away. And like I put up a few things on Instagram about that, and like the comments are pretty funny.
People get triggered. Yeah,
people do not. People are like, you're killing people. Like it's like you're like, don't believe this horse shit. And
dude, I've seen this happen many times over the last year, with myself and friends with little injuries and stuff like that. And I'm with you. I believe if we just took the time to reflect and really got down to the, what we're carrying or what we haven't looked at, there's something there. And it's interesting how it's like where on the body that it shows up in relation to this energy, right? Because it's all energy at the end of the day, right? So I'm with you. I wouldn't be one of those people that disagree with you. Maybe a few years ago I would be like, but I see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you look, like Louise Hay does a lot of great work on this. German New Medicine does a lot of great work on this. Joe Dispenza talks about it. Like there's evidence that this is actually Bruce Lipton, biology of belief. Like there's so many things out there that point to this is true. It's just that we've been so programmed that like, nope, sprained ankle, like just go to the doctor and get some pain meds and have whatever. And I do believe that there's a place for, this Western medicines. Like if you need to have surgery on a broken bone, have surgery. And then you get to look at what's the emotion? Is it left side of your body? I mean, feminine side, masculine side, like is it lower back, like not feeling, I mean, there's so many, every part of our body has an emotional connection, whether it's the lungs and grief, the liver and anger, like mouth problems, inability to digest life. There's just so many different, it's freeing to know this. Yeah. Really. It's really, it's taking your power back because you know that you are the creator of all of it. Yeah. And then when you recognize that this physical symptom is simply your body saying, okay, it's time that this leaves our body. It's a purge. Like for me in 2022, when I had cancer, it was a purging of the last remnants of my shame. Right. And in an ayahuasca ceremony in Costa Rica, probably one of the worst, not worst, one of the most intense plant medicine ceremonies of my life. At the very end of it, I was like, I was in that, like, I was saying, God damn it. I was like, God damn it. Can we just fucking stop this? And it was like, I was looking at 48 years of shame. Yeah. And I was like, just relentlessly like this and this and this. And then I'd be moments of like 5 or 10 minutes of like, complete God, complete just fucking source, bliss. Like, and then it would just come right back in. And I'm like, God damn it. And finally, towards the end of the night, I started saying, something came over me. It was like, how about God, thank you. And in that moment, as soon as I started saying that, the whole thing ended. Yeah. And it was, and then
got the lesson.
Yeah. So I got diagnosed with cancer on November 1st. Had this trip. I was going down to serve Bufo at this retreat, and then
what year, Sam?
This is 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, 2022. So November 1st, I was diagnosed by 2 doctors with oral cancer, third time, and I'm like, immediately they're like, yeah, we'll get the biopsy and we'll determine course of treatment. And I'm like, no, there's no, I know the course of treatment here.
Mm-hmm.
This is very holistic, very spiritual, plant medicine. And so I had this trip to Costa Rica, and I got the biopsy done when I got back from Costa Rica, and the cancer was gone.
Mm.
This was like 9 weeks. And so that, just like knowing that,
Mm-hmm.
And being able to say, like, I know for a fact this is actually not a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is my body saying, we need to get rid of this now.
Right. It's actually doing you a favor. It's
100%.
yeah.
It's the body doing what the body's designed to do.
Yeah. It's like sending you a signal
Mhm.
saying, okay, this is going on.
Yeah.
Pay attention to this.
Yes.
And let's get
Yes.
it out of here. You know, even with colds, like
Totally.
cold is just, you're trying to detox something.
Yep.
Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that you're onto this, and more people are starting to catch on to it. Cause a few years ago, I could see people, well, even now people get triggered, but we're onto the same
Yeah.
tip here. Sam, you've shared many codes today, you know, with plant medicine and you know,
Mhm.
spirit animals and your own personal wisdoms of experience and growth and everything. It's amazing. And for
Mhm.
me, a code is like you get an epiphany, you get a new wisdom,
Yeah.
and now you have a new perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're looking at life in a different trajectory, and
Mhm.
you're going in a new direction. You
Yeah.
know, and that's, it's like playing video games when we used to get the codes. and
A,
now
B, B, up, down, left,
you
right,
got
yeah.
it. Exactly. So same generation. I love it. If you were able to, or if you can, if there's one code that's really impacted your life that you'd like to share with people that could make an impact in their life, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, if you only knew this code, if I only knew this code,
Yeah.
what would that be for you?
I have like a part A and part B of this.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
The first one is allow yourself to be a beginner.
Mm.
Like every time in my life that I have allowed myself to be a beginner, it's turned out a lot better than when I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm one of those, like I was a really high level athlete in tennis, and tennis is one of those things that, like, I picked up a racket and I was good at it.
Wow.
So I had this program of like, oh, things are easy. You know, I don't need to be a beginner. And like, no, that's not the way it goes.
Uh-huh.
And so like, I've always, whenever I'm struggling with something, trying to like force, you know, square peg round hole, it's like, where am I not being a beginner here?
Mm-hmm.
And then within that is, I know that every time that I look away, I'm missing something.
Mm.
So if something is, it's staying power. If something is massively uncomfortable and I look away, like this is like, if I'm having a rough day and like a rough stretch, and like I tend to like go to Netflix, or I tend to go to like a weed gummy, or like this thing to like distract. Like there's value in that in moments.
Sure.
But if that's your go-to is to look away,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going anywhere. Nothing's getting done. So the code would be, just don't look away.
Right.
Something that's asking for your attention, don't look away.
Give it attention.
Give it your attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great codes, brother. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
This has been so fun, Sam. I love getting to know you. We had this amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on your heart that you want to share with the audience?
I think that, I think that one of the things that as humans that we really get to work on is re-relating to our own pain.
Mm.
I think that what I found myself and what I've seen other people go through is that we tend to just want to get rid of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Go away.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing in that moment is exiling versions of us.
Mm-hmm.
We're rejecting versions of us that carried pain, that experienced pain,
Mm-hmm.
and that might experience pain in the future. So I think one of the biggest lessons that we have as humans right now, and Tolle talks about this in the book, is the pain's not going anywhere.
Right.
It's just not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is, how do you hold it? Our capacity to hold our own pain
Mm-hmm.
is directly equivalent to our capacity to hold more love.
Mm. Wow, beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, Sam, thank you for being you. Thank you for the journey and sharing it with me and the audience today. It's been awesome. I truly, truly enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for all the work that you're doing here in Austin and outside of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. Where can people find you if they want to tap in with you or get to know you a bit better?
Yeah. First of all, thank you
You're
as
welcome.
well. I received that, and it's my pleasure, and so it's so great to be here. And thank you for all you do too, man. Like I see all the things you're doing, and whenever I go to a function and I see you there, I get excited.
Thank you.
It's beautiful to see that you're bringing your medicine to the world in the way that you are.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
I honor you.
Thank you.
Find me. Instagram's the best place.
Cool.
At Sam Gibbs Morris. That's GIBBS at Sam Gibbs Morris.
Sam Gibbs Morris. Awesome. Well, thank you, Sam, once again. This was awesome. You're definitely eons ahead. And yeah, that's it for today.
Thanks,
Thanks,
man.
everyone.
Yep.